A scrappy sailor with forearms the size of tree trunks, an unyielding addiction to spinach, and a vocabulary that's 90% gibberish. That's right, we're talking about Popeye the Sailor Man, the one-eyed wonder who punches his way through problems faster than you can say, "Bluto, you're toast." But have you ever stopped to wonder where Popeye actually came from? Spoiler alert, he didn't just sail in from the high seas. His origins are stranger, funnier, and a whole lot more human than you might expect. Oh, and before we dive into Popeye's brawl-filled backstory, don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button. You won't need a can of spinach to stay strong, just a steady stream of fascinating, funny history from epic footprints. Let's rewind to 1929, a time when people entertained themselves with comic strips because, well, Netflix wasn't a thing yet. Enter Thimble Theater, a comic created by Elzie Chrysler Sager. At first, it wasn't even about Popeye. It focused on a character named Olive Oyl and her less-than-impressive boyfriend, Harold Hamgravy. Yes, Hamgravy. Apparently, naming conventions in the 1920s were as strange as Olive Oyl's fashion choices. But here's where things get interesting. In 1929, Sager introduced a rough-around-the-edges sailor named Popeye for a single storyline. Popeye wasn't supposed to stick around, but the public went nuts for him. Why? Maybe it was his mumbling. Maybe it was his never-say-die attitude. Or maybe it was his weirdly specific forearm muscles that made you wonder if he skipped leg day entirely. Whatever the reason, Popeye stole the show. And by the 1930s, Thimble Theater became the Popeye Show. Here's where things take a turn for the absurd. Popeye wasn't entirely a figment of Sager's imagination. He was based on a real guy, Frank "Rocky" Fiegel, from Seeger's hometown of Chester, Illinois. Fiegel was a local legend, a wiry, pipe-smoking brawler who reportedly loved a good fight almost as much as he loved spinach. Fiegel's reputation was, shall we say, colorful. He was known for his strength despite his small stature and would take on anyone who dared challenge him. Sound familiar? Oh, and he always carried a pipe in his mouth, even during fights, because nothing says, "Don't mess with me," like puffing on a pipe while rearranging someone's face. Cigar grew up hearing tales of Fiegel's antics and decided to immortalize him in cartoon form. Fiegel didn't mind, though he probably didn't anticipate being turned into a global icon. The townspeople of Chester even placed a statue of Popeye in honor of Cigar and Fiegel. Talk about a glow-up. Let's not forget Popeye's supporting cast, because every great hero needs a dysfunctional entourage. Olive Oyl, Popeye's love interest, was also based on a real person, Dora Pascal, a tall, lanky woman who worked at a local grocery store. Pascal's eccentric personality and unconventional looks made her a perfect inspiration for Olive. And then there's Bluto, Popeye's eternal nemesis and professional punching bag. While Bluto didn't debut until the animated cartoons, his role as the beefy villain who never learns his lesson was essential to Popeye's charm. It's a classic tale. Two guys fight endlessly over a woman who honestly deserves better. Ah, spinach, the magical superfood that gives Popeye his strength. Except, it's not as magical as we've been led to believe. The myth that spinach is packed with iron comes from a 19th century German study where someone misplaced a decimal point, overstating spinach's iron content by a factor of 10. Yep, Popeye's entire shtick is based on a math error, but here's the twist. Popeye's love of spinach actually boosted sales during the Great Depression. Kids, desperate to grow muscles like their favorite sailor, willingly ate the green stuff, much to the delight of parents and spinach farmers. In fact, Crystal City, Texas, known as the spinach capital of the world, erected a statue of Popeye in gratitude. By the 1930s, Popeye wasn't just a comic strip star. He became a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Max and Dave Fleischer, the animation geniuses behind Betty Boop, brought Popeye to life in a series of theatrical shorts. These weren't just any cartoons, they were groundbreaking. The Fleischers introduced the rotoscoping technique, which added a realistic quality to Popeye's movements. Popeye's animated debut in Popeye the Sailor, 1933, was an instant hit, and soon he was giving even Mickey Mouse a run for his money. Fun fact: for a brief period in the 1930s, Popeye was more popular than Mickey Mouse. Let that sink in. Disney's mascot got overshadowed by a guy who couldn't pronounce the word strong. Fast forward to the 1940s, and Popeye became a patriotic symbol during World War II. His battle cries against Bluto turned into metaphors for the fight against Axis powers. Popeye cartoons during this era featured him taking on enemy soldiers, sinking ships, and proving that spinach was the secret weapon America didn't know it needed. Of course, the wartime cartoons didn't age well. There's a fair amount of problematic content, but they cemented Popeye's place as an American icon. By the 1950s, Popeye's popularity began to wane as television cartoons shifted toward newer characters like Bugs Bunny and Tom and Jerry. But Popeye didn't disappear entirely. He transitioned to TV, starring in hundreds of episodes produced by King Features Syndicate. Over the years, Popeye has remained a nostalgic favorite, popping up in everything from advertising campaigns to Robin Williams' 1980 live-action film, which is either a cult classic or a bizarre fever dream, depending on who you ask. So why is Popeye still relevant today? Maybe it's his underdog spirit or his no-nonsense approach to life. He's a hero who doesn't need a cape or high-tech gadgets, just a can of spinach and an unshakable belief in himself. Plus, let's be honest, watching him turn Bluto into a human accordion never gets old. And there you have it, the surprisingly human, hilariously weird origins of Popeye the Sailor Man. Now it's time for you to subscribe to Epic Footprints for more strange and fascinating history.